Good morning, dear friends, and welcome. On behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship at Stony Brook, I'd like to offer a warm greeting to all, and I invite those of us here in the sanctuary to wave to those of us who are joining online. Let's wave hello to those who are attending virtually. Good morning. My name is Carol Castillo, and I am happy to be your worship associate today. Our interim minister is the Reverend Dr. Madelyn Campbell, and our Director of Religious Education is Deb Little. She's not with us today. I hope she feels better soon. Please plan to join us after the service for coffee and conversation. For those of you who are with us online, if you sign off after the service and return to the website, you'll find a link to join a small group chat. Whether you're here with us today or joining online, you will surely find some friendly people who will answer any questions that you might have. And now we'll enter into the sacred space of worship with the sounding of the morning bell.
Come, beloveds, enter into this space made holy by our presence. Enter into this hour made holy by our intention. Come and open yourself up to transformation. For by being in community with one another, we transform and are transformed. Let us enter in and worship together.
This morning, I have asked Orion El Shafe to light our chalice. The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. We kindle the flame of our faith in the cup of our covenant. May the cup sustain us on our journey. May our transformation cause our light to shine even brighter. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. We will sing the first hymn, number 33, Sovereign and Transforming Grace. Peter and Dee Dee are going to play it all the way through first.
Today's story is a true story about transformation. The story is adapted from Ada's Violin, the story of the recycled orchestra of Paraguay, and it begins in 2006. Ada Rios grew up in a town made of trash. Every morning at dawn, Ada heard the first garbage trucks rumble and roll down the road to Catura. Beep, beep, beep. Everybody know that backup sound? Beep, beep, beep. Backing into the landfill, they tipped their loads up and crash! The trash came tumbling down. 1,500 tons each day. Ada and her friends watched as the gancheros, the recyclers, scrambled, tearing into plastic bags with long-handled hooks, pushing aside moldy produce and grabbing anything they could recycle or sell. The going rates? 5 cents for a pound of cardboard, 10 cents for a pound of plastic. One day when Ada was 11 years old, her grandmother saw a sign posted on the wall of a chapel. Violin, guitar, cello taught Saturdays at 8 p.m. Flavio Chavez. Flavio Chavez was an environmental engineer sent to Catura to teach safety practices to the gancheros. The gancheros are the recyclers, working amid dangerous heaps of refuse. Laboring alongside them in the dump, he befriended the adults and worried about their children. He was a musician. He decided to offer music lessons to the kids to keep them out of trouble and off the streets. Ada's grandmother had longed to play an instrument as a child. Too late for me, maybe, she thought, but not for her granddaughters. She signed them up without even asking them or their parents. At the first class, the teacher, Senor Chavez, had 3 guitars and 2 violins to share. Ada chose a violin right away. But 10 children had signed up. There were not enough instruments to go around. And there was a bigger problem. The children needed to practice at home, but it was not safe to carry an expensive instrument in the streets. A violin was worth more than a house where Ada lived. Senor Chavez knew he had to do something. He remembered a band called Les Luthiers that made its own instruments. So he asked Cola Gomez, a ganchero, he's a ganchero and a carpenter, for help. Senor Gomez picked through the mountain of trash and found a discarded oil drum with a big hole in it. Then he found an old X-ray film. Would these work? They did. Senor Gomez kept experimenting. Helped by others, inventing instruments wasn't easy, but they fiddled around, discovering which materials hit just the right notes. They transformed oil drums into cellos, water pipes into flutes, and packing crates into guitars. Soon, there were enough instruments for all the children who wanted to play. Ada chose a violin made from an old paint can, an aluminum baking tray, a fork, and pieces of wooden crates. That sounds very much like your violin, did it? Right, yeah. We use what we have, right? Worthless to thieves, it was invaluable to her. It was a violin of her very own. Dee Dee, is that a violin of your very own? That's important to have it of your very own. Senor Chavez set up a strict schedule of 3-hour lessons, the class had no classroom, so they practiced outside sometimes in the 100-degree heat and in sudden downpours. At first, Ada and the others struggled. Sharps and flats clanged and clashed. Some kids decided it was too much work and gave up. But not Ada. After lessons, she would practice at home, sometimes 2 hours a day. In time, the screeches, twangs, and tweets hit all the right notes. Soon, the ragtag crew of kids learned to tune in, to listen to one another, to band together. The recycled orchestra was born. From then on, there was something new in the air in Catiora. Gancheros trudged home from the landfill. They might lift their heads to hear the sounds of Ada's violin. As Ada's skills grew, so did her confidence. She began to play solos. She helped the younger children to learn. When she was 12 years old, the orchestra was invited to perform concerts in Catiora and the capital city of Asuncion. As word spread, the orchestra was invited to perform in other cities and even in other countries. In 2016, the crowd cheered wildly as they took the stage with the rock band Metallica. How do you like that? They have played for dignitaries and even for the Pope. The money from their concerts goes back to the community to rebuild homes, their music school, and their lives. Today, 400 students take lessons at the music school. Transformation indeed. And amen. You are invited to turn to the very back cover of your hymnal to find the Reed Children's Benediction. And Susan and Shelley will be at the door to the RE wing, and the youth can join Amy and Carrie at the same door and wait there as the congregation sings our benediction once through, and then you can go to your classrooms, and the youth group will meet after service in the yellow room, so please get some food and take it back.
Following our meditation in word, we will sit in silence for a minute, and then we will sing hymn number 123 in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Life. Actually, that's your only hymnal today. If you're not familiar with it, you might wish to open it now and keep that on your lap, number 123. Also, you're invited to light a candle during the service today. It's a candle of joy or concern, something that you're holding in your heart. And you might want to do it during the meditation or perhaps during the offering. The candles are over there. Our meditation this morning is excerpted from the proposed new language for Article 2, our Unitarian Universalist Association covenant. Transformation. We adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages, never complete and never perfect. Will you join me in this prayer by Reverend Elizabeth Harding, a Unitarian Universalist bereavement counselor? This prayer can be found as part of her piece found on Braver, Wiser. Spirit of life and love and transformation, may we hold the moments of fear with wisdom and awareness. May they be our teachers and open us wider in spirit. May we seek out the moments of wonder. May we open ourselves to be overcome by their possibilities so that we too can become transformed. May it be so.
So today we're looking at the last little bit of our new proposed Article 2 language, that beautiful flower with what at the center? Love. Oh, you are so, see, you know this stuff, right? With love at the center. Love is at the center of all we do. Love being at the center of transformation. Now, it happens that in 1841, Reverend Theodore Parker gave a sermon called The Transient and Permanent in Christianity, which was one of the big, important sermons historically in Unitarianism. In fact, it's one of the three big sermons and speeches that ministerial candidates are required to read to prepare for the Ministerial Fellowship Committee in order to receive fellowship with the UUA. And I thought I'd, excuse me, I'd just read that sermon for you today. I thought I would, but I'd forgotten the pain of reading. No, that's terrible. It's just long and it was small print. I'd forgotten about reading it when I was preparing for the MFC. It's over 11,000 words. It clocks in at about 2 hours. So how much time do you have? Yeah. Who's got time for a 2-hour sermon? So I'll give you a brief summary here. How's that? And this is from an article that appeared in the UU World magazine in May, June 2003. The article is Theodore Parker, Heretical Prophet, by Reverend Dr. Rosemary Bray McNatt, who is currently the president of Starr King School for the Ministry. She says, Parker was active in the transcendentalist furor of the 1830s and 1840s when Unitarians were divided on theological questions like, was Jesus truly a worker of miracles? Was the Bible the supernaturally inspired Word of God? Was God a loving Father, as Parker insisted, or a set of impersonal laws to be found everywhere, as Emerson announced? The issues may seem quaint to us now, yet the energy surrounding these questions formed and shattered friendships and disrupted collegial relations among Unitarian ministers. By 1841, Parker openly disputed the miracles described in the New Testament, which seemed to many of his colleagues to call Jesus' authority into question. In a discourse on the transient and permanent in Christianity, quote, the sermon that would make him famous as a heretic prophet, unquote, Parker identified not the doctrines of traditional Christianity, but the pure religion of Jesus as permanent. And quote, he says, absolute pure morality, absolute pure religion, the love of man, we might say humanity, yes? But it was 1841. The love of man, the love of God, acting without let or hindrance, the only creed it lays down, there is one God. Ooh. Now, Parker's sermon was vilified by Trinitarians who questioned his fitness as a Christian minister and demanded to know whether other Unitarians agreed with his radical claims. And it didn't help that Parker compared the stories of Jesus with the stories of Hercules, Jupiter, and Neptune, causing his critics to regale the public with stories of the sex lives of the Greek gods, which further outraged everyone. It wasn't long before his brother Unitarian ministers began to refuse to exchange pulpits with him, and even some of his transcendentalist colleagues and friends thought he had gone too far. And beloveds, I just want to make it clear, Parker didn't say you can't believe in that stuff. Well, maybe he did, but I'm saying you can't believe, I'm not saying you can't believe in the miracles. What Parker was saying was what's permanent is the absolute pure morality, absolute pure religion, the love of humanity, the love of humanity, the love of God acting without let or hindrance. Love is at the center of all we do. And let us not forget, because he says that there is, the only creed it lays down, there is one God. Another name for God is love. There is one God, it is love. So if that's what's permanent, all the rest is transient. And that leaves a lot of room for transformation. Now, I've mentioned before that one of the things I do love about being here on Long Island, and you know I'm a New Yorker, but I'm not originally a Long Islander. One of the things I love about being here on Long Island are the rocky beaches on the North Shore. I mean, the sandy beaches are fine too, but I love the rocky beaches, and you know that I search for beach glass. Now, beach glass is just glass that's been thrown into the ocean or ended up in the ocean. And it gets battered around and battered around and battered around, and it gets smoothed. But the texture of it often changes as well. And usually these are things that were glass bottles. And if you have any sea glass or beach glass, you know that it starts to get kind of like a sandy surface, right? And it changes the feel of it, certainly. And because of that change in the surface, it changes the way light refracts, so it can change the way it looks a little bit, too. And one of the things that I find fascinating about glass is, what is glass made out of? Sand. If you put it in a kiln, if you heat it up enough, it becomes glass. Any potters here? Anybody make pottery? I see a couple of hands, right? And if you glaze your pottery, you have to put it in the kiln. And what happens if you put way too much glaze on something and it drips down? When you go back to the kiln to get it, what have you got? Glass in a puddle, right? That can be sharp, like you pull your piece up and you got to be careful that you don't cut yourself on that glass. So the sand gets transformed by heat. Heat is a catalyst here. The sand gets transformed by heat and it becomes glass. And then we do things with the glass. And then the glass might break, or we might lose it and it might end up in the ocean. And then it gets polished by all the things it rubs up against and by the water itself. And it ends up back on the beach. And if it crumbles up enough, it can end up back as sand. But we can't actually transform without grinding it up. We can't transform a piece of glass back into sand, right? I mean, we can grind it up and make sandy, but we can't freeze it, take away the heat, or add more heat and turn it back into sand. It is real transformation. And things transform around us all the time. Another thing that happens when you go to the beach, is if you stand there, I'm not going to move. I'm just going to stand here. Well, if you just stand there at the shore, what happens? The water comes in and it pulls the sand away. And pretty soon, what you thought was something solid to stand on is not solid anymore. It's been washed away from underneath you. So even if we say, I am never going to change, well, you're going to be changed because everything around you is changing. Change is inevitable. It happens all the time. But is that the same as real transformation? And what are we talking about here? In our language, that we covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. Never complete and never perfect. Well, Theodore Parker was saying that, right? Things are transient. Things change around us all the time. Never complete and never perfect. Anybody here ever heard of process theology? No? One hand, I see a hand in the back. Well, I took a summer school class on process theology once, and I'll just summarize it for you now. Right? Today's the day of summarizing, right? Because when people get whole degrees in process theology, and we don't have time for that lecture, right? Process theology teaches us that everything, including God, is always changing. Now, if you came from a particularly Protestant or maybe Catholic, but Protestant for sure background, some of you I know did, you learned that God never changes, right? God is constant. God is the same always. Well, process theology says, oh, no, God is changing all the time. If you grew up Jewish, we're very comfortable with the idea of a changing God. When God speaks to Moses from the burning bush, God tells Moses God's name. In Hebrew, we never speak God's name out. God says, I almost gave God a gender. I don't like to do that. God says, I am who I am is how it's often translated. But if you understand how Hebrew verb tenses work, there's no past, present, future. There's incomplete action and completed action. And the verb tense God uses is not completed action. So it could be translated, and then there are, more, you can get more detailed. I'm not going to give you a whole Hebrew lesson here. But it can be translated as, I will be who I will be, or my favorite, I am becoming who I am becoming. Now, if God can become and transform, and I know that we have plenty of folks here who are not theists, but I want you to hold on to that image of God as love, the divine spark, whatever you understand as divine. If the divine can be constantly changing, can evolve, can transform, maybe we can too. Never complete, though, and never perfect. That means that we always have more to learn. We can always evolve with new information. So what does all this mean for us now? Well, Theodore Parker reminds us that we need to hold on to that moral compass. That's why a big reason that people join together in religious community. Religion, remember, means religio, to bind together. Why are we bound together in religious community? I mean, we could go off and be spiritual individually and go live in a cave, right? But we bind together in religious community. A big part of that is so that we hold each other mutually accountable, ourselves and each other mutually accountable to this, to our moral compass. Right? So when we know what our foundation is, where our moral compass is, things that are right, the way we want to make the world to be, the world that we want to live in. Is everything in this world right now right and complete and good? Is everything? No, it's really not. Right? I mean, is everything here in the town of Brookhaven right and complete and good and perfect? No. Okay. Is everything in your personal house right and complete and perfect? I had company over, and I was saying, well, you've seen my desk. I had the staff over, and you know that I'm a mess and I'm very disorganized. And they said to me, well, but your place looks so nice. I said, yeah, because I went running around and shoving things in closets. And did anybody else do that? Just me? Yeah, oh, thank goodness. Okay, right. When company comes over, we want to shove all the things in the closets. We want to make sure everything's vacuumed, every surface is sparkling, your countertops look like you've never cooked in the kitchen, right? But beloveds, together in religious community, you are not guests here. This is your religious home. And when we're at home with each other, we can acknowledge the mess and the things that we can still change and make better. So we want to work to transform the world and to intentionally build the beloved community. But if we're going to do that, can we do that and be unchanged ourselves? No, we cannot. I want you to think of a time in your life, and I'm not going to sing the Jeopardy music while we do this, but I just want you to take a few moments to think of a moment in your life when something transformed you, when you were transformed. Do you have that moment? Does everybody have a moment? Now, Was the first thing that came to your mind a really good experience that transformed you, or a really bad experience that transformed you? And you don't have to share, but I'm going to ask, and you can share. How many folks, the first thing that came to your mind was a really bad experience? A handful. And how many folks was a real good experience? More. Excellent. But it can be either way. And both of these things are transforming. I think that sometimes we are afraid of change and transformation because the things that transform us are big things, and sometimes they are not big, good things. Right? The death of a loved one, especially an unexpected death that we haven't had time to prepare for, can transform us. When we find that someone we've looked up to and admired is really not that good a person at all, has done something really awful, that can transform us, right? But also, learning something new. Our first big trip, befriending the exchange student. I was telling somebody the other day, you know, when Mormon missionaries come around, I always invite them in. First of all, they don't get a lot of hospitality offered to them. You know what? They get a lot of doors slammed in their face. Second of all, because of my history, I'm familiar enough with the Mormon Church. Third, I am solid in my own faith, and I know that many of these folks have never met anybody who wasn't Mormon before. I'm not trying to change them to make them leave the Mormon Church. If you found something, hear me out. I'm not saying, let's go convert the Mormon Church. Don't come up to me afterwards and said, Pastor Madelyn, you said that I should tell my Mormon neighbors to come here. I am not saying that. I'm saying exposure is good, right? We can all be transformed. And if I can be the person who invites them in, who lets them know, I tell them ahead of time, yeah, I'm not, you know, actually I'm a religious professional, but let's talk, sure. And maybe open minds a little bit. I'm also not saying that you now have to open your door to every missionary who comes by and knocks on your door. Like, that's my thing. If you think that that's your thing, yay. But, you know, I'm not telling you to do that. But I'm saying that sometimes we get transformed, and my exposure to them is also transforming for me. Not in terms of having me convert to the Church of Latter-day Saints, but in terms of my exposure and understanding how other people think. We expect to be transformed a bit by going to school, right? By learning new things. But how can we seek out transformation? Have you been transformed by coming here? Have you ever met a Unitarian Universalist who's been going to a particular congregation for like 30, 40 years and is still the same angry person that they were when they walked through the doors the first time? Yeah, it happens. I've met some people like that. Do you think they're open to transformation? No, not easily. They're working through some stuff. Friends, we all have stuff to work through. And some of us are on an 8-lane highway, and we're transforming ourselves. We're learning stuff. We're doing. Other folks are on. I know I've said this before too. Other folks are on a really stony, narrow path. But we can accompany one another on the journey. So, beloveds, come here as you are. Come here as you are, and then expect to be changed by the experience. We will never complete our transformation. We will never be perfect. And that's perfect in itself, isn't it? There is beauty in the process. There is beauty in the way we do this together. Now, somebody this morning showed me butterfly earrings. We often think of butterflies as the optimal symbol of transformation. So I'm going to remind you that when that caterpillar enters the chrysalis, it doesn't just sprout wings and come out. It kind of turns to goo in there. It's a messy process. Are you ready for the mess? Are you ready for the mess? Again, you are bound together in religious community to support one another through the process. Go. Be messy. Get messy, make mistakes. Who knows where that's from? Miss Frizzle, right? Get messy, make mistakes, support one another, accompany one another on the journey. The imperfection and the incompleteness in itself will be perfect. Namaste. Now, at this time, I want to invite Linda Cortese to the pulpit for a stewardship moment.
Good morning. My name's Linda Cortese, for anybody who doesn't know me. If you don't know me, you'll probably know me sooner or later. Rich and I first started coming to services at the fellowship in January of 2007 at the suggestion of Rich's mom, who had been a member here before moving to Florida. We have different beliefs when it comes to religion. Me, an agnostic who was raised Catholic, and Rich, an atheist who was raised as an atheist, who believed he would never find a spiritual home where he would fit in. What we found was a welcoming place of friendly, interesting, open-minded people who had beliefs and values similar to our own. We came back. Shortly after that, we went to a meeting after service for anyone interested in helping to start a monthly music cafe. We decided to go, as it was right up our alley, and immediately became part of the startup team for Grounds and Sounds Cafe. Still running all these years later. Some months later, we were asked if we would be willing to prepare the dinner for the Pledge Drive kickoff. I remember responding with, just because we make brownies for Grounds and Sounds, that doesn't qualify us to make dinner for 120 people. Then Rich came to me and said, we could think about it as if we were in the catering business and making food for a large event. What would you want to serve? To which I replied, you want to say yes, don't you? So we did, and what a learning experience that was. I mean, where else in your life can you try something, organize something, or lead something that you never thought you had the skills to do? You get to try your hand at so many things here. For me, these included learning to set up and run sound, learning to facilitate Zoom services during the pandemic, learning to set up and do live streaming when we returned to in-person services, and so many other things. I also became involved in activities that I enjoyed, such as being on the communications committee and singing in the choir. To me, fellowship life provides many opportunities for growth, collaboration, and connection. It provides opportunities to work with others on social justice issues to help make the world a more just and equitable place. It provides a community which supports each other in our joys and our sorrows. It provides a place to teach our children kindness and empathy. These children will be the thought leaders of tomorrow, and I would like to see the fellowship be here for the next generation the way it was here for each of us when we decided to walk through those doors. That is why Rich and I support this fellowship, not only with our energy, but also financially, not just to sustain our spiritual home today, but to make sure that it's still here tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. At each service, it is our spiritual practice to take a collection, which we share with a local organization working for a more just future. It is our spiritual practice to share our offering plate each Sunday. Our shared plate recipient for the month of March is Bethel Hobbs Community Farm. This farm was established by the Hobbs family in the early part of the 20th century, and it was the last African-American-owned farm on Long Island. Upon the death of Alfred Hobbs in 1996, the property was left to Bethel AME Church. The farm is now managed as a 501c3 by the Friends of Hobbs Farm. Among its many benefits to the community, it supports local food pantries and soup kitchens, has an education center, a community garden with garden plots for individuals, and a Saturday farm stand that will open in May. This is the time of year when expenses are highest, and our contribution will be most needed. So please offer your generous support to the Bethel Hobbs Community Farm. You may make your gifts in the plate or online. For those online, the link to donate is in the comments. Your gifts will be gratefully received and well used.
What a lovely offertory. Will you join me in dedicating our offering? The words are in your order of service, either on paper or if you're using it on your phone. To the work of our faith, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Amen. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our final hymn, number 143, Not in Vain the Distance Beacons. Beloveds, go in peace, go in love, go and be transformed as you go always in the footsteps of the holy. Amen. And now we extinguish our chalice flame, for our worship has ended and our service begins. I invite you to, as you sit back down, to wave goodbye to the folks at home through the camera on your left as we await the postlude. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I forgot the bell.